I'm going to record a second channel video.
What?
I'm going to record a second channel video.
Okay.
Okay. Hi guys, so I need your help. I need you to help me think of I feel like, this is such a hard concept to explain, but I'm going to do my best. So, I'm trying to dissect the, subtle but important differences between, the phrases gender and gender identity, because they're different, but sometimes they're the same. Sometimes, your gender identity and your gender matches, so therefore, your gender and your gender identity are the same. They match. However, there's, a disparity of language in our society where, our culture will frequently use the term gender identity for non-cis folks when they are actually talking about gender. So, the only circumstance I can think of is, it's essentially when they're talking about trans folks or non-binary folks as gender, they'll always say gender identity consistently. They'll be like, their gender identity, their gender identity, their gender identity, their gender identity, their gender identity. But when we talk about a cis person's gender, we never use the phrase gender identity. We always just use gender. And that's kind of frustrating, that disparity in language, because it's kind of why the distinction? It kind of insinuates that cis people's genders are more natural or more inherent or more legitimate or more valid, while trans or non-binary folks' genders are more fabricated or constructed or made up because they just get gender identities. They don't just have genders. So can you think of and I'm talking about this in my book, and I'm trying to have an illustration to depict this. So I need and it's going to be a comic, so it needs to be a verbal interaction. And right now the one I have is really unnatural and not real. I need you to help me think of a circumstance where somebody uses gender identity for a trans person, where they would usually use the word gender if they were talking to a cis person. That's it. I need you to think of a circumstance or a situation where an uncomfortable cis person, or just an ignorant, or maybe not ignorant, that's a little harsh, maybe just a unaware cis person, or unaware any person really, might, I don't mean it in a bad way, an ignorant cis person, I just mean it they're just ignorant, they're just unaware, they don't know. Cis person, or any person, might unnecessarily use the whole phrase gender identity when they're talking to a trans person, when they really just mean gender. So I guess I think of some. So maybe you're talking to a gender ambiguous person that you just met, and they're oh, where's the bathrooms? And you're a staff at a store, and you're it depends. We have our bathrooms, our men's and our women's bathrooms are in separate places. What's your gender identity? You wouldn't say that to a cis. Well, you wouldn't question a cis person, that's the thing. You'd just know. Well, not really, but probably. So the one I have right now would be sir, I think you're in the wrong section of the store. No, I'm in the right place. I'm a woman. Oh, my mistake. I didn't realize that was your gender identity. It's just the fact that, gender identity is always used for trans and non-binary people, or non-cis people, almost consistently. We never just get genders, we always have gender identities. It's this mystical, magical, floaty thing that's, totally made up and, not inherent or real. It's, unnecessary, and we made it. Anyway, so I need you to think of, a real live instance, or it could be something that you see on the news. They're, maybe they're doing a special about, Caitlyn Jenner, and they frequently use the word gender identity when they would totally just use gender. And I also thought about doing a side-by-side comic, the same situation with a trans person and a cis person, side-by-side, but you would notice, so if there's a news story about a cis person's gender, like about their gender, about them being a woman. Like, what are some of the hardships of having that kind of gender, of being a woman, of being like a woman in our society? How is it hard to have that kind of gender? But if there was a anyway, I got a Twitter message. But if there was like a similar news story about a trans person and their gender, they wouldn't say like they wouldn't focus it on like, oh, how's it so hard having that gender? They'd be like, so what are the hardships of having that gender identity? Yeah. So boopity boopity boop. Can you help me think of like a? You can either think of two situations and just like how they're different, and I can have them drawn like side by side, or it can just be like one like comic of just like a weird usage of the term gender identity for a trans person, and then below it I can write, but if it was a cis person, like, you know, they would just say the word gender, not gender identity. Does that make sense? I'm struggling, guys, with this book. Help me.